We're on. Excuse us for that. We had a little technical difficulty, but we're live now. We appreciate you spending your time with us. Welcome to the Cincinnati Nature Center. It's a beautiful day. We're glad you're going to spend some time with us. This is the very first episode of Ask a Naturalist. My name is Tim McManus. I'm one of the naturalists here. Our subject today is going to be animals in winter. And as we get started, I want to thank some folks for making this possible. Olivia is one of our educational interns here. She brainstormed on this. And Maria and Cassie, our staff here, are helping out with the media part of this. I appreciate their effort. I would also like to dedicate this series, Ask a Naturalist, to probably the greatest naturalist I knew, and that was Mr. Bill Creasy, who is no longer with us physically, but he's here with us in spirit. And he continues to guide us and inspire us here. As I mentioned, our program is Animals in Winter. I'm going to do a little overview here for you. And hopefully if you have any questions, please put those out, type those in, and I'll do my best to answer those. If I do not have the answer, I will be happy to look into that and get back with you with a proper answer. Just a few short days ago, we celebrated Halloween. And historically, Halloween is the halfway point between the fall season that we're experiencing and the winter season. So we are transferring into the colder climate. And as we prepare for that, we're already probably getting out the warmer jackets and coats and hats and gloves and preparing for that. But we're going to discuss about what it's like for animals, how they transfer into winter. And some of the key ways that they do this is they migrate, and to a lot of people, they're the smartest of all animals. They simply go someplace that's warmer in the wintertime. That's how they handle it. And as we think of migration, probably most of the time we think of birds and waterfowl flying in V formation. And one of the things that I'm so looking forward to this November is when the sandhill cranes migrate through. And if you had an opportunity to do that, it's a wonderful experience. You usually kind of hear them before you even see them. It's a haunting sound. And when you see them, it's a beautiful thing to witness, to see the freedom on the wing of the sandhill cranes flying through by the hundreds and going to their winter homes. Another way that animals adapt is they simply remain active and they adapt. Your fox, your deer, they're still active all winter long in search for food and continue to do that. Another way that animals get through the winter time is by hibernation. They'll sleep through it. We're very familiar with bears that do that, but a lot of different animals do hibernate. There's another category that animals deal with, and they refer to it as dormant. And there's a little bit of a gray area there as far as some people refer to it as light hibernation, because they are kind of active, but they sleep for long periods of time. So that's another category. And with that, we'll go into some of the questions that have been presented for Ask a Naturalist. The first one is, do animals other than mammals hibernate? Well, yes, they do. Our insects will look underneath bark or go into the leaves and things like that and sleep for a period of times. Their bodies go down in temperature. Wood frogs will actually be able to freeze, and they'll be able, they have kind of a natural antifreeze, if you will, to their blood system that helps them to handle real cold temperatures. Reptiles go into something that's not called hibernation, it's actually called brumation. Our turtles in the pond behind me, that's what they'll do when there's ice on the lake and they go down into the water there. And what's interesting about brumation is, of course, their metabolism and their energy level goes way down. But in colder water, there's actually more oxygen. And these reptiles can adapt to that and absorb that oxygen through their skin. Other things that we've been asked before is, how do cold-blooded animals stay warm in the wintertime, which is interesting. They don't. They are cold-blooded, so they have to adapt in different ways. Snakes often go into like dens that are in trees or in the ground, and they like to gather with other snakes and kind of feed off of each other's warmth. So cold-blooded have their way of dealing with those kind of temperature changes to survive the winter. Another question that's presented is, do mammals' fur get thicker in the wintertime? Well, yeah, just like us, when we're looking for warmer clothes to wear, their fur naturally gets thicker. An example would be like a deer. You'll see if you're looking at deer out in the woods now, their fur is getting a little darker, and you can see them looking a little puffier. And they have like inner layer of hair, and they have an outer layer that actually has a core in it that holds and traps air. And that actually creates a nice barrier of insulation for them to survive the colder temperatures. So yes, yeah, to prepare themselves, the foxes, the wolves, things like that will get thicker fur in the wintertime. Other questions that I've seen presented before are, do herbivores eat in the wintertime? Well, that goes back to our deer and our rabbits, and they are able to stay active and search for food. They don't have as many, obviously, green things to eat, but there's still many nuts that they can have and eat on. I invite you in the wintertime, if you go out there into the woods, you'll see areas, especially after a snow, where deer have been very active and brushing back the debris there to get to the nuts. And you'll see cleared out areas where they have been very active in that. Another animal that kind of survives, I would say be more of a dormant style animal that eats nuts, is the squirrels. You'll see squirrels off and on. At this time of year, they're busy going all around the grounds and burying their nuts into the ground. And they use their sense of smell to find those nuts in the wintertime. And fortunately for us, sometimes they don't always find those. In the springtime, those nuts will become seedlings and they continue to grow. But a squirrel adapts in the wintertime they can sleep up to 20 hours a day and slow down that. But they're kind of in the light hibernation category. They'll climb down the trees and stay active looking for their food. All right, and we'll continue. Another question is, do all insects die in the wintertime? No, some of them have a cycle that through spring, summer, and fall, they do lay their eggs and pass on. That's their cycle. But a lot of insects do spend the time like underneath bark. You're probably familiar with the woolly worm. A lot of people like to look at those this time of year because they feel that can predict how cold a winter we're going to have. But their bodies can go completely solid cold. You can brush them out of the way, but when the temperature's right and the sun comes up, that's when they're able to be active again. So yeah, some insects do, but a lot of them kind of enjoy a nice rest till the warm weather comes again. I'll continue with...
Tim, do you want to talk a little bit about leaf litter?
Leaf litter.
Important of having leaves around for those animals?
Yes, that's very good. I know a lot of people like to rake leaves this time, but a lot of the insects and animals benefit from that leaf cover. That's very important to an insect's life cycle to have that kind of debris to burrow into. Turtles take advantage of that. Box turtles getting into the ground underneath, that provides it provides very good habitat for them. It also provides shelter through the colder temperatures that are out there. Leaf matter in the bottom of the pond out here is very effective for the amphibians and the turtles that go down into it. But yeah, that's a good question. It's nice to see leave some. I know some people like a nice lawn, but if there's areas you can take advantage of and leave some piles of leaves, that's very beneficial to have. How do animals live under the ice? Well, that's a good question. We discussed that a little bit with how reptiles go into brumation. What they'll do is they'll kind of go to the bottom of the ice, but on warmer days they can become active for a few days and they can go back into their brumation and take care of themselves like that during that season. And another question that I see are, why are there insects in my house in the wintertime? That's very good. Insects, in fact, even reptiles, snakes can get very active this time of year, and they're looking for a warmer place to go. And you'll find, especially ladybugs, I'll find like on the south-facing side of windows in houses, especially older homes, where there's might be some cracks that they can get into. They like to cluster in that area simply because it's a warmer place to go and survive the winter time. I've asked people how they can prevent this, and I've heard some good suggestions, like it's a good time of year to kind of inspect your house and the foundations, seal up any cracks, maybe take a pair of binoculars and study your gutter system and around your chimney to see if there's any openings. So animals like raccoons might want to make their home in there, so you don't want to have that be accessible for it. And speaking of raccoons, this time of year, they're trying to eat a lot. They're trying to build up their body fat. And they also go into a dormation, a light hibernation, if you will. And they live off of that storage of food like that this time of year. But they come out and be active at certain times, too.
We just had a question. Jake Faulkner wants to know, how do bats survive the winter?
Oh, bats are another one that they'll... Two different with the species. Some of them do migrate to warmer places, and they are also, a bat is one that actually hibernates also. So they will go into a sleep and slow down. But it varies by species. Some of them do migrate to warmer places, and the ones that stay do go into a hibernation. That's a good question. What are the other... this is, why don't birds' beaks and their feet get frozen in the winter time? Birds have an incredible amount of circulation. That's why I'm so glad to hear that we can feed the birds again. There was a time that we weren't able to do that because of the spread of some of the diseases there. But you can feed your birds now. And this helps. They use a lot of energy to keep warm. So they have great circulation in their feet and in their beaks, but they need to eat a lot to kind of maintain that. And also a bird needs to, you'll see this, especially with chickadees, it's kind of fun to see. When it's very cold, they'll puff themselves up. They look almost twice as big as they really are. That's another adaptive feature that they use to trap the air inside and create more warmth around their bodies. Other animals, like I've got a paw of a gray wolf here, and he's got plenty of fur for everything else, but foxes and coyotes don't have any fur in this area, and they have a lot of blood cells in this area. And that circulation in there keeps their pads from becoming frozen in the wintertime too. And they're obviously very active all winter long. Any other questions out there about animals in winter? If not, I would invite you to please reach out if you have any questions. Come out and see us here at the Nature Center personally. On our website at cincynature.org, we have a link there that says Ask a Naturalist. Take advantage of that. If you have any pictures or any questions, that comes to all of us, and we'd be happy to research that. To kind of wrap up, I would remind you to not hibernate this winter. Please come out. Winter is a wonderful time to come out to the Cincinnati Nature Center. It's a mystical time to come out here when there's frost on the trees and snow on the ground. So I hope you enjoy the season coming up. Thank you for your time.